So, Vedan, do you ever feel helpless or frustrated, or by the end of the day, when you consume news on Instagram or read some article on X? And I know that you use a lot of X, and then you talk with your family and then talk with your friends, and then at the end of the day, you feel as though like the world is going to collapse and I can't do anything. I'll just do something and sleep, and then wake up the next day and do something. So, do you have that feeling of being helpless sometimes?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, not every day, but when you come across some really dehumanizing incidents, like for example, I remember you'd shared a post yesterday, I think, about some guy being locked inside with a dog and he was found
Yeah, yeah.
abusing.
Dewey shared that. Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, when you come across things like that, it just makes you wonder, like, where exactly are we go heading towards as a society? And now the thing is that because we get a lot of information and a lot of news just thrown towards us by because of social media, we have kind of become desensitized, like, I don't know
yeah.
what the right
Desensitized. That the
desensitized
word.
towards it. Because now when you hear about probably a murder or something, you just feel like, like you get a lot of that every day, and it takes something really weird or something really extreme to kind of catch your attention, because you get these headlines every single day and you actually don't even get the time to process something before you get the next headline. So that is why I really at times feel, as you said, helpless, because there just seems to be no solution to this. It seems like no one is actually working towards a solution, especially in India, because if all of us know that if you are rich, if you have enough power, you can actually get away with anything. And when politicians or the people in power themselves bail out certain criminals, get them into their parties or political parties, and use them to gain votes, I mean, what can you say to that? Is
And
just
so
helpless.
I'm really happy that you feel this way. I mean, I'm not happy that you feel this way, but I'm happy because my response now is going to get even more value from you. So I want to dive a little bit deeper. So what you've explained is the result of what you feel, but you haven't really, we haven't really explored why we feel this way. So I want to take you to the past. I want to take you to 1844 in America. So,
Okay.
what is happening is in 1844, everyone is receiving news and information from newspapers. And newspapers are also like the new thing because we've just discovered the printing press in the last 50 years. And then people have now started to print newspapers, and they're going to now there are daily newspapers, and people are getting information from there, and what they are receiving is what happens in their neighborhood. There was a bank robbery, there was a murder, there was a kidnapping, and people know that it's happening around me. So what I need to do now is to go to a sheriff, I need to go to my elected member, or I need to go to my neighborhood and spread awareness about this. That's the only thing they know. But in 1844, what happens is a guy named Samuel Morse who invented the Morse code. So
Yeah.
Morse code is nothing but dots and dashes that represent alphabets, and we can communicate through that. And a lot of movies also use it, or a lot of undercover agents or army men, they use this to communicate with each other. He created that, and he got hold of electromagnetism that had been invented just 20-25 years ago, and he created, or he invented, a system called telegraph. A telegraph is basically transmission lines that transmit information from one place to another, and information to reach to someone had a big barrier of distance. So if I want to communicate right now to Mumbai in
Yeah.
1840s, I need to write a letter, and I need to wait a month so that that letter reaches that person, and that person then replies me back, which will take another month. So we are just conversing like we have a gap of 2 months. But now what transmission lines did was that from here I can transmit information over there if I have sufficient infrastructure. and it can reach there by the end of the day, or yeah, by the end of the day, let's
Yeah.
assume that. And this guy got grants from US government. He created and he demonstrated telegraph lines, and everyone was amazed, like, okay, how can we now communicate from this part of America to that part of America? And news businesses really took interest in that because that's their market. A Washington based newspaper can only give news to Washington people, but now because of telegraph lines, they can now communicate with what, California or Texas. And that's what they did. So they started to give information from Washington or from New York to Texas and to Los Angeles and other whatever cities were present at that time, and they started to give information at rapid pace. So now they didn't have to wait for 24 hours, or they didn't have to wait for someone to grab their newspapers or grab their magazine or something and then reach it after a month, reach someplace after a month. They can do it instantly.
Yeah.
So a person from Texas is now receiving an information from Washington that a man in Washington was kidnapped, and the that was paid was $100 or $150. And then now this person is now thinking, okay, so kidnapping is happening everywhere. What, maybe our world is coming to an end because kidnapping in Washington, kidnapping in California. What am I supposed to do? So I'm reading this book called, and I received this information from the book called Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman. And he writes that because of Telegraph, the relevance of news became irrelevant. So newspapers or news companies started giving so much information without context that people just didn't know what to do with it. They just receive information, didn't know what action should I take. So it's not just social media that has done this now. The real change, which he says, came from, and by the way, he's writing this book in 1985, so he doesn't even know. And obviously, he's now not in this world, he's
So,
dead.
so the
Yeah.
information that he wrote actually came to you 30 years later, 30, 40
Yeah.
years later.
40 years
Yeah.
later, I'm reading his book, and he doesn't even know social media exists because he's not in this world anymore. So he would have gone crazy because he's written about how TV and visual mediums have really disrupted our discourse, and he started from Telegraph. And a really good I don't know, like a comparison that he made, that information and action go hand in hand. So if you receive some information, fundamentally humans receive some information, the first thing that they do with that information is think, what action can I take from knowing this? So if I tomorrow I tell you, okay, I have got a job worth 75 lakh rupees per annum, you will receive that information, and your first action, if you're a good friend, you would say, all right, congratulations, I need to congratulate him, I need to message him, I need to go and visit him and do something with him. So that's the action you're planning, right? But like, imagine 1000 people tell you, you have 1000 friends, 1000 friends tell you the same kind of information, and now you're like, okay, so do I congratulate this guy or this guy? Everyone is your best friend. So what do you do then? So he argues, Neil Postman says that information and action has a ratio, and when telegraph was invented, that ratio was significantly disrupted, where you had more input and more information, but the action you can take from that information literally diminished. And if you compare that to this era, and I have a very good Jeff Bezos quote here, even though we don't like him that much. But I had heard him say that, I think 5 6 years ago, which was a old clip of his. He says that stress doesn't come from hard work. Stress comes from not being able to take action on things that you feel you have control on. So if you receive, like you said, the reel on the dog and the man trapped in a bathroom, it was a horrible thing. I don't want to repeat that news. Or we receive a lot of information on molestation and infrastructure and whatever. Fundamentally, if you think, yeah, it is in your control to do something about it, but you can't actually take direct action on it. And that's where you get the frustration for it, because you feel no one is doing anything. I can't do anything. What is going to save our world now. And I'll leave you with this and then continue afterwards. What do you feel about this?
Yeah, I think that is what makes us feel so, what do you say, disappointed or angry that we actually can't do something about it. After I've like, if I read something and if that thing bothers me, then obviously my first impulse or my first action is to, like, hey, what can I do to actually help solve this problem? Or even in even in real life, like, if you come up to me with something, my first instinct is to just try to think of a solution that might help you. So again, I think any information, it doesn't even have to be news, it can be your problem that you share with me. May it be about a game that you say, hey, I'm stuck on this level, I'm stuck, I am having this issue. Instead of, probably just listening to you, my first instinct would be to think about my experience or think about what might help you get out of that, because I think maybe that's just humanity to not see some other person in stress or not see them sad, and just doing whatever is in our control to help them. So yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
kind of makes
And
sense to me.
yeah, and because a lot of information that we receive, and this is a point about news gathering as well, which we need to understand. It's very easy if something happens in Indore, it's if something happens in Pune or whatever, it's very easy actually. People think that it's very difficult to criticize Modi or BJP government, but it's actually the easiest thing to do because
Yeah.
at the center, we are so far away from all these people that we can literally just directly blame it on someone and blame it on that person. But no one actually tells us what actual action should I do if I receive a horrifying news. So if there was one very bad news, right, that in Indore 13 people died because the water quality was really bad and it was almost sewage water that they provided. Everyone was enraged. I was enraged. I lost hope. I felt what is happening in this country 75 years later. We can't even give people clean water. And immediately we start to think, I mean, what can I do? And then I scroll up or scroll down, and then I receive that okay, someone is murdered or someone is molested, and then I'm like, okay, I need to go away from Instagram. So we find a coping mechanism of moving away from the news. But instead of that, if our local news structure is really good, which is not, then the local journalists actually look at the news in Indore. They write an article which says, look, this is what is happening in Indore. If you don't want this to happen in your city, these are the actions that you can take. And the first thing that should come in our mind is to go and contact whoever local politician is there and municipal corporation politician is there. And we ask them, okay, we want a report of the source that we receive water from, and we need to know if that water is clean from a third party. That's the solution. The solution is in like front of us. We can actually do that, but we can't because no one actually tells that to us. And if social media did not exist, if we receive this newspaper every other day, like, after 24 hours of whatever has happened, then we wouldn't feel this depressed. But after every second, if we are receiving a news that is making us stressed, we will think that there are 1 million problems and I can't solve any one of them. So the best thing is I keep this to myself and I become a good person and not fight and just stay at home and not do anything. And then, I feel this is what power feeds on. Lack of action that people take, realistic action that people take. And I find this in a lot of discussions as well. A lot of people, when I talk with them, and obviously everyone talks political these days. Whatever the issue is, we go and talk about what is happening right now and what needs to change. And so many times, the conversation ends, if there are more than 3 4 people, the conversation ends on nothing is going to happen and it's only discussion. We just discuss and we'll go on our ways. And people, I see this hopelessness in people, and I want to tell them that it's not that. There are people who do take these actions. You can either support them by money, that's the first thing that you can do, or you can really step back and whatever news or whatever information you're consuming, you can actually take a proper action in your local community, and that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
And that's like the most powerful thing anyways that a person can do. So I feel this is, it's not you, it's the information and the kind of information and the way we receive our information and the frequency of information that we receive is doing this to us. And the entire, I think, this generation of our world that has now really been addicted to social media and phones, they feel more depressed now about the world because we are receiving this information in this kind of way. Yeah.
I think whatever you said for the solutions, I think again the basic step has to be for schools or educational institutes to just, stop focusing on the syllabus and marks and try to instill the, that skill of critical thinking into students and into people more and more. It's not just students, it's everyone around us who has passed out. We often, confuse someone being educated with someone being, actually sensible or smart, and those two are not, they don't correlate. So steps need to be taken for people to actually, start questioning things. And we've seen this since historical times, right? Because information has always been the most valuable thing, even if it is a war. More than weapons, more than the people out on the battlefield, it's information that holds the most value, and that can uh, you know just disrupt entire kingdoms. And that is what even the biggest dictators have always been afraid. Like since historical times, people who have always asked questions were jailed or were banished from the society, because nobody actually had answers, and they did not want the masses to be influenced by these people to actually start asking questions, because that is when things get dangerous for anyone, may it be a government, may it be a king, may it be anyone in power. So I think that needs to start, and when that eventually starts, then these steps, like, going to your local authority, local body, asking these questions, demanding reports, because most of the people around us aren't even aware that this is something that they can do. Like, all they know is that they have to go cast their vote to someone in 5 years. And as you said, every conversation ends with "we are doomed. No, nothing is going to happen." So we just go cast our vote. For 5 years, we just keep on complaining. The road is not fixed. The water is not coming in our apartments. The light is not that frequent. Electricity is cut off. We just do that. Then the cycle repeats. The elections come. People come to our houses to ask for votes. We go and give them our votes, and the cycle just, uh, repeats. So I think the main thing here would be for schools, for colleges, for people or the government in general to
Yeah,
start.
train the next generation about media and information literacy and
Yeah.
how this inform, because it's not going to go anywhere, right? We can't really say stop watching social media, don't watch movies, don't communicate with people. It's a natural thing that's now
Yeah.
incorporated in our lives. So we are going to anyways keep on doing that. We just need to understand what Instagram should be used for, and we need to understand, even though, and it takes a toll, and like I'm not saying that it's going to be better if you understand this concept of information and how it affects us. But because I feel really saddened as well, like, whenever I watch these reels or watch some information that is devastating, and I have a soft spot for animals, and most of it really bothers me, and it really holds me down. But then I have to keep on reminding myself that this news is contextless and it's kind of irrelevant to my life in that sense. If I feel about animals, the change is not going to come by commenting on that reel or sharing that reel to a friend. The change is going to come if I sit down and decide, okay, my yearly goals are, I want to spend more on donating to people that are working on this issue. I want to take more care of the animals around me. I want to go and talk with a local politician and ask him if I can do something about this issue. Like this is the first step I need to take, and therefore it has helped me calm down a bit since last year and even this year. That okay, if something devastating comes to my feed, I shouldn't just instantly think the world is going to burn and it's hopeless and get depressed and then sleep or whatever. So, and I actively also avoid watching Instagram early in the morning when I wake up. So, because I don't want to go and start thinking of it, I want to be fresh. I want to go and read something, and then when my day starts, probably I'll go and watch Instagram, and then yeah, that just helps me deal with this information a bit more.
And just yesterday, I read that Elon Musk's net worth has now reached like $788 billion. And even that affected me. Like,
Yeah,
who needs that much of money? Like, even
right.
$1 billion, if you think about it, is a really big number for anyone. And his net worth is like 7, 8. Of course, it's not like money he has in hand. But at what time does this, like, at what point does this stop? Like, does he even know if he is given that much money to spend? Is he even going to be able to spend all of that money? So, like, it's things like these which some people might take it in a positive lens, like, hey, he has worked so hard and he's built something, and there will be his fanboys, but it affects people like us. And I think another thing uh, that needs to happen is that people actually start not just looking into headlines and reading everything that they read,
Yeah, yeah,
like completely and with a bit of context, like why this happened. Like even your newsletter, which explores, when you sit down for an hour and go into the, like, just try to understand why this happened. Okay, how does this work? Because most of the times we are just afraid to say, I don't know that, or something. We just always want to be
yeah,
uh, seen like we know everything. So we
yes.
are afraid to say that I don't know this, and that is why we just don't take the efforts to actually go and find out. We just think that
And
just giving some
yeah,
random context information is the best option that we have.
and a lot of the times, the people who struggle with the conversations are people who think that they don't know a lot about a lot of things. And when the information comes from the next person who thinks that that person, like he or she knows everything, then we have to respond because know that fundamentally there is something wrong with what that person is saying, but we don't know for sure because we don't know we don't have the entire information. And then, yeah, I also struggled with that because I felt that he's winning in the conversation. And then we need to remember and remind ourselves that there is nothing
Yeah.
like that. There's no winning in a conversation. If that person thinks that way, it's all right. He or she is not the main villain. And that's also a point that we should explore in the next few episodes. Like why do we how do we channelize our anger, and it often comes down to blaming someone else, and we feel that that person is the reason the world is like the everything wrong that is happening. Because what we talk about, and then if my father comes and he says no, everything is all right, and whatever is happening is actually good, it is very easy for me to divert all the anger to that person and feel that that person is the reason why this is happening. And this is exactly how we fall into this trap of it's you versus me, whereas it's always, or most of the times, it is the system that is at work here. And then the divide and rule concept comes up, where all politicians and the overlords that we still have still use this tactic of or like diverting the blame to someone else, and then we keep on blaming each other. And it sounds silly, it sounds like, no, I'm a smart enough person to not fall into this trap, but we often actually do in a lot of topics. It's not just politics, it's also something else. It's also, take any topic, history, nutrition, like sports, and then we start fighting one another because we feel that you are the biggest problem because you are supporting something that I don't believe in. So that's also, we need to like kind of remind that that's nonsense. Basically, that's not he is not the reason that everything is wrong. So yeah.
And I think I think the only thing that you need to remember is even if you do prove your point, you're actually not getting anything in return. I
Yeah.
mean, even the satisfaction of having proven your point will last like a minute or two, and things will go back to normal. And if you just keep this in your mind, you'll probably
So
stop doing that.
yeah, and what I usually now do is, uh, and obviously to not a lot of people, but if someone I know that is maybe talking from the point of view of being unaware about things, I don't actually try to prove a point because then that just ends the conversation. It just becomes about you versus me, right? And then people are not open enough to understand or try to understand my point. So just slightly nudge them towards something that they may explore going home, and then they might come to a discovery, and then they change their mind. Because yeah, I mean, change will happen from within. I mean, I'm not going to force, I can't force anyone to change, or I can't force anyone to consider a perspective. So I kind of tried to do that. But anyways, the episode was not about this. The episode was that we feel hopeless because of the technology that has enabled information to reach us at a faster pace than we can interpret it, and we can analyze it in order to take any action. And because it's so fast, we can't analyze this amount of information so quickly, and then we feel that we're out of options and we can't take any action. And then we feel that nobody's taking action, and then we feel that the world is going to, going to end because it's just bad things that are happening. So yeah, that was the point. Do read about Telegraph. It's a very interesting story as to how it changed the way we all communicate. And one more, like a very interesting fact that I think I sent on the group about information itself, that the first printing press was, I think, established in Oxford University or something, like the first printing press. And Shivaji Maharaj was, I think, yeah, I think he was just 4 or 5 years old back then. And then imagine how much time it took for printing to come to India. And
Yeah.
imagine if we had the printing press at that time, how much documentation that we could have had in that part of history. So this is how it's information has always worked, and it's something that guides us towards the future. So do read about Telegraph as well and Morse code if you're interested. All right. We're done here now. If you enjoyed the episode and if you feel the same way we felt, do comment and subscribe, and we will meet until next time.